At Monza, Max Verstappen proved to be decisive both on the track and in the broader strategic picture, while Ferrari found itself left to reflect on missed opportunities, particularly concerning its tire strategy and overall race preparation. Expectations were extremely high for a Ferrari breakthrough at the historic Italian circuit, especially with Charles Leclerc and the Scuderia looking to deliver a performance that could challenge McLaren and disrupt their streak of dominance. However, instead of a Ferrari triumph, it was Max Verstappen who delivered a masterclass performance, orchestrating one of the most impressive weekends of his Formula One career to date. His display of skill highlighted not only his exceptional and widely recognized driving talent, but also his deep technical insight, which allows him to push the Red Bull team to take bold, calculated risks that often pay off spectacularly. Ferrari might have been capable of mounting a similar challenge, but their absence from the podium was largely a reflection of the inherent limitations of the SF25 chassis, particularly in terms of tire performance and high-speed stability. Once again, the Scuderia found itself conceding ground to McLaren, whose mid-race pit stop controversy was influenced not just by strategy, but also by the sudden surge in pace shown by Oscar Piastri during the middle phase of the Grand Prix. In a Formula One championship increasingly dominated by McLaren, Monza offered a rare opportunity for other teams to attempt an upset against the squad poised to retain the drivers' and constructors' titles. Several technical and strategic factors contributed to even McLaren's vulnerability, despite the Woking-based team having delivered a dominant performance just a week earlier at Zandvoort. Chief among these was the MCL39's tendency to lose aerodynamic efficiency in low downforce configurations, which coincidentally happens to be the preferred setup for Red Bull. Red Bull team principal Laurent Mekies noted that the RB21 chassis tends to perform optimally on circuits with medium to low downforce requirements, in contrast to high downforce tracks, highlighting a subtle advantage in certain layouts. On race day, another decisive factor was the exceptionally low tire degradation experienced by the drivers, which was, in fact, lower than the initial data observed during Friday practice sessions. This minimal wear allowed drivers like Esteban Ocon to complete an extraordinary 50 laps on the same set of tires, enabling them to push to the absolute limit without holding anything back. The result was a breathtaking display of speed, culminating in the new record for the fastest average lap in Formula One history at Monza, exceeding 250 kilometers per hour. With McLaren's historically strong tire management advantage effectively neutralized, the team could do nothing but watch Max Verstappen pull away, consistently setting blistering lap times that left competitors trailing. The Dutchman's ability to dominate the race was further supported by Red Bull's strategic choice to reduce rear-wing downforce on Saturday morning during qualifying. This provided him with the critical straight-line speed necessary to overtake Lando Norris quickly and decisively at the start of the race. Beyond the obvious aerodynamic benefits, this strategic adjustment highlighted Max Verstappen's leadership and technical influence within the team, as he actively guided engineers in finding a car balance that allowed the RB21 to operate at its absolute limits, even with reduced rear downforce. Laurent Mekies explained that despite the challenge of maintaining optimal balance with the less downforce wing, Max Verstappen insisted on keeping the configuration and encouraged the team to find alternative solutions to compensate. This episode underscored both his technical mastery and his strong character, reflecting why he is considered one of the most complete drivers in modern Formula One. Red Bull's success at Monza was far from being the result of a single driver alone. It also reflected the excellence of the team's engineering and operational approach, marking the first victory under the guidance of former Ferrari team member Laurent Mekies. Several updates contributed to the performance gain, including a newly designed floor that was specifically brought to Monza, aiming to enhance aerodynamic efficiency and balance. Although the absolute contribution of this component may have been measured in mere tenths of a second, in contemporary Formula One, where races and qualifying are often decided by thousandths of a second, every incremental improvement becomes crucial. Equally significant was the availability of a low downforce rear wing, finally tailored to the high-speed demands of Monza, which successfully addressed the weaknesses that had hindered Red Bull during the 2024 season. The team also implemented additional changes that were less visible to the public eye, hidden within the nuanced setup choices and engineering philosophy adjustments. In Monza, Red Bull experimented with a revised approach to suspension and aerodynamic settings, learning from previous shortcomings experienced in Budapest. In Hungary, the RB21 struggled to adequately warm its tires due to extensive testing of multiple setups, aimed at identifying and resolving the car's limitations while preventing these issues from affecting subsequent race weekends. Mikis confirmed that Red Bull intentionally took calculated risks in Budapest to better understand the constraints of the car, acknowledging that the weekend had been poor in terms of results, but ultimately rewarding in terms of knowledge gained, a reward that became evident at Monza. Despite McLaren's strong showing earlier in the season, the team was effectively powerless against the combination of Max Verstappen and Red Bull at Monza, a pairing approaching near perfection. Lando Norris lacked the straight-line speed necessary to mount any meaningful defense, leaving him no choice but to allow Verstappen to pass at the start of the race. He pushed aggressively in an attempt to contain the gap, hoping that superior tire management might allow him to close the distance later, but this strategy ultimately failed to materialize. His initial race aggression backfired during the latter half, as Oscar Piastri, benefiting from fresher tire conditions, managed to recover 3.5 seconds over 14 laps leading up to the pit stop. This situation led to the controversial pit stop episode, in which Piastri appeared to benefit from Norris's misfortune, only for team orders to nullify his recovery. While McLaren's intention was to preserve internal team harmony for the long term, these decisions inevitably invite scrutiny, raising questions about whether such orders may have counterproductive effects. Looking ahead to Baku, McLaren will likely face further challenges, as the low downforce characteristics of the MCL39 could once again expose weaknesses, particularly on a circuit that rewards straight-line speed and aerodynamic efficiency. For Ferrari, expectations were high, and the Scuderia had hoped to secure a podium finish at Monza, particularly with Charles Leclerc in top form, and Lewis Hamilton providing strategic support from the other Ferrari seat. Unfortunately, the team ended the race just off the podium, leaving both drivers and engineers with a sense of frustration. Ferrari had chosen an extremely low downforce setup for their SF25 cars, a decision that Red Bull's results later vindicated. The setup proved useful in defensive maneuvers, such as when Charles Leclerc successfully defended against George Russell in a critical part of the race. The Monegasque driver believed he had maximized the SF25's potential together with the team, but it was clear that the car's limitations could not be overcome, leaving Ferrari to acknowledge the reality of their technical constraints. Several regrets emerged from the weekend. The first concerned tire preparation during the formation lap, which immediately put Charles Leclerc at a disadvantage. Poorly prepared tires caused the Monegasque driver to slide and overheat the compounds prematurely, compromising his ability to defend against Oscar Piastri, despite having higher straight-line speed. While the gap later suggested that defense might have been possible if managed differently, the early mishandling of tires effectively closed off that option. The second regret centered on the overall approach to the race weekend. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur had previously stated that the SF25 car's preparation would prioritize race performance over qualifying. However, the minimal tire degradation observed on Sunday effectively froze the starting positions, rendering the strategic focus less impactful. Fred Vasseur admitted that the team was surprised by the low degradation, a sentiment apparently shared across the paddock. The situation underscored the accuracy of the French manager's earlier prediction in April that the championship could be largely influenced by qualifying performance rather than race pace alone. This is an element Ferrari must take into account for the upcoming Grand Prix in Baku, where McLaren could once again expose vulnerabilities in the SF25's low downforce performance, especially on a circuit favoring high-speed stability and tire management. Ultimately, Ferrari's weekend at Monza highlighted both the team's strengths and its limitations. While Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton executed well within the constraints of the SF25, and while strategic decisions were made in alignment with anticipated race conditions, the combination of minor errors, technical restrictions, and the exceptional performance of Max Verstappen and Red Bull meant that the podium remained just out of reach. The lessons learned in Monza will be crucial for Ferrari as they prepare for Baku and the remaining races of the 2025 Formula One season, particularly regarding tire preparation, aerodynamic choices, and strategic planning under conditions where degradation is unexpectedly low.